So I want us to look at this quote. In fact, we're going to look at the whole chapter it's in, because whenever the Bible quotes a verse from the Old Testament, it intends for us to see that verse in its context. So I want you to turn to Zechariah chapter 9, because this is the passage that tells us what Palm Sunday is all about. Jesus knew this. I'm going to look at the whole chapter very quickly. If you want exposition of this chapter, I've got a couple sermons on the whole chapter on sermonaudio.com. This is a prophecy. Hundreds of years, about 500 years before Jesus was born. Bear that in mind. Let's read the first verses. The burden of the word of the Lord is against the land of Hadrach, that is Assyria, with Damascus as its resting place, for the eyes of men, especially of all the tribes of Israel, are toward the Lord. And now, I'm not going to get all these names pronounced correctly, but what you do is, here's what preachers do. Pronounce these names dogmatically. Whether that's the right way or not, everybody pronounce them like that afterwards. And Hamath also, which borders on it, Tyre and Sidon, though they are very wise. For Tyre built itself a fortress, and piled up silver like dust, and gold like the mire of the streets. Behold, the Lord will dispossess her, and cast her wealth into the sea, and she'll be consumed with fire. Ashkelon, Gaza, Ekron, on down, the Philistines. Now, what's amazing about that list of names of cities? That is the exact route Alexander the Great would take 200 years later in conquering the East. And here Zechariah is prophesying he's going to go to this city, then he's going to go to this city, then he goes to this, a couple hundred years before he conquered the world. And notice how it says he's going to destroy Tyre. He says, first of all, he's going to cast all her wealth into the sea, and they're going to burn it with fire. Now, that's pretty hard to do, isn't it? To flood a city and then burn it. Tyre was a little island. That's exactly what Alexander would do 200 years later. First of all, he flooded it. It's all in history books. And then after he flooded Tyre, then he burned what was standing to the ground. So what is God telling the Israelites at this point in their life? They've just been in bondage to Babylon for 70 years. The Persian king had just whipped the Babylonians and let them go back to Jerusalem. They were very weak. They lived in a world that was extremely dangerous, surrounded by totalitarian powers bent on destroying this little nation. And God's saying, in the midst of all this danger, here's how I want you to live. Here's how I want you to know that you're safe and secure. You're surrounded by great nations that are determined to destroy you. But you can still rejoice in the midst of all of them. And so he says in verse 9, and here's what Jesus quoted, or John quoted. Rejoice greatly. Jesus said, don't be afraid. So he has a right, being the author of Scripture, to interpret however he wants. Rejoice greatly, O daughter of Zion. That's an affectionate name for the inhabitants of Jerusalem. That's an affectionate name for the followers of Christ. Shout in triumph, O daughters of Jerusalem, like you're doing right now on Palm Sunday. Behold, your king is coming to you. He is just. He knows how to punish evil and reward good. He's endowed with salvation that he will freely give to all who believe. He's humble, that is, he's being humiliated by man, and mounted on a donkey, even on a colt, the foal of a donkey. And I will cut off the chariot from Ephraim and the horse from Jerusalem, and the bow of war will be cut off. There's not going to be any war against Rome. Jesus isn't going to raise a big army. He'll speak peace to the nations. And his dominion will be from sea to sea, and from the Euphrates River to the ends of the earth. Jesus is saying, here's why I'm coming in Jerusalem on this donkey. I'm declaring myself king. In terms of Zechariah 9. Your king is coming. I'm not coming as some kind of militaristic person. I'm coming to speak peace to the nations. And as those nations believe in that peace and bow before me as the great bringer of peace, my rule and my dominion of peace will be over the whole world from sea to sea. That's why the title of my sermon is Earth's King on a Donkey. Earth's King. America's King. Russia's King. China's King. And you either bow before that king, or he'll wipe you off the face of the earth like he eventually did Alexander the Great and his armies.